At just 17, Jamal was sentenced to life in prison for a crime he swore he did not commit. The courtroom went silent when the gavel dropped. His mother screamed. He cried, but not because he was guilty. Everyone had already decided his fate, except one woman who believed in second chances. Then, years later, a phone call came. One voice, one sentence. And what happened next not only changed Jamal's life, it exposed something much darker than anyone imagined. The night it happened, Jamal was walking home from the corner store, a bag of chips in one hand, a soda in the other. It was late, and the street was empty except for the occasional streetlight flickering and the distant rumble of sirens. That was nothing new in East Haven, a neighborhood where most dreams disappeared before they had a chance to begin. Jamal had always stayed out of trouble. He loved drawing, sketching sneakers in his worn-down notebook. His mom worked double shifts at a diner just to keep the lights on. His dream was simple: get out of the neighborhood and build something better. For her, for them both. But dreams shatter fast when the wrong people are watching. That night, a man had been shot 2 blocks over, a local store owner. Witnesses said they saw a tall black teen in a hoodie fleeing the scene. Within hours, the police were knocking on Jamal's door. He never had a chance. His hoodie matched the description. His skin matched the fear. They dragged him away in handcuffs while his mother begged them to check the cameras. But the system was not built for listening to people like her. The public defender barely looked up from his paperwork. The jury never even heard about Jamal's alibi, that he had been at the store, on camera, buying snacks. The prosecution called him a ticking time bomb. They said he was angry, aggressive, likely to escalate. But no one talked about how he had never had a single detention in school. No one mentioned how he tutored other kids in art class, or how he stayed home every night to care for his mother's diabetes. The sentence came fast: life in prison, without parole. 17 years old. As the handcuffs tightened, Jamal's eyes searched the room for someone, anyone who would say this was wrong. He found no one, except for a woman in the back row, mid-40s, faded blue blazer. She did not cry, she did not shout, but her eyes stayed locked on his until the bailiff pulled him away. That woman was going to change everything, but not yet. Inside the prison walls, Jamal's world shrank to concrete, iron, and silence. But he did not fold. He read books. He studied law. He drew faces of everyone he remembered from that night, trying to find some detail, some clue that might save him. Then, 8 years later, when he had almost given up, a prison guard handed him a note. "Call this number. She says it is urgent." He stared at the digits. Familiar but distant. Slowly he dialed. A soft voice answered. "I am the woman from the courtroom, and I think I can get you out." Jamal's hand trembled as he clutched the phone receiver. It was the first time in 8 years someone had called not to lecture or threaten, but to listen. "I was a paralegal at the DA's office back then. I was in court during your trial. Something about it never sat right with me." Jamal leaned forward, his heart pounding against his chest like it wanted out. "Why now?" he asked. "Because I finally have something real. A piece of evidence that was never presented. It was buried." Her name was Claire Benton. She had left the prosecutor's office 2 years after Jamal's trial, quietly. She had seen too many cases like his. Boys of color getting swept away like dust in a system that never asked questions when the statistics matched the stereotype. She had spent the last 5 years digging through old case files, looking for ones that screamed injustice. Jamal's was the loudest. "I found a witness statement," Claire explained, "from the clerk at the corner store. It confirms your alibi. You were there, and the timestamp proves it." Jamal pressed his eyes shut. But it was never submitted, never even mentioned. Someone suppressed it. Jamal went silent. So did the phone line. Claire's voice came back softer this time. "I'm going to file a motion, but we need more. If you are willing to fight, I will fight with you." That night, Jamal sat in his cell staring at the note Claire had sent him. For years, hope had been a curse, something that hurt more than helped, but now it was starting to feel like a weapon, maybe even a key. Claire worked day and night. She pulled archived files, she tracked down the original clerk, now retired and living in North Carolina. He remembered Jamal, remembered the night clearly. The kid bought chips and soda. I told the officer, never heard back. Claire's hands shook as she documented everything. She also discovered a second detail, one that chilled her to the core. The lead detective in Jamal's case had a record of misconduct. He had been accused of tampering with evidence, twice, both times swept under the rug. This was not just a wrongful conviction, it was a setup. Claire filed an appeal. The prison guards called Jamal to the legal office. He sat in front of a small screen where Claire appeared over video call. I filed it. It will take weeks, maybe months, but we are in. For the first time in years, Jamal allowed himself to smile. That smile faded 2 weeks later when a letter came through the bars. The prosecution had responded. They denied the motion. Evidence too old, witness unreliable, conviction stands. Claire was furious, she told him. They know they're wrong. They're just hoping we give up, but I will not let them bury this. What happened next was something even Claire had not planned. The story got leaked. A local journalist who had covered Jamal's case 8 years earlier received a tip, an anonymous package with all the suppressed evidence and a message. You told the wrong story back then. This is the real one. The article dropped like a bomb. Widespread news stories. Teen wrongfully sentenced. New evidence suggests cover-up. Social media exploded. Old classmates, teachers, neighbors, they began speaking up. And then came the call Jamal never saw coming. The victim's daughter. She asked to visit him.
The visitation room buzzed with low voices and cold tension. Jamal sat at the far end of the glass divider, staring through the thick pane as the woman walked in slowly. She looked to be in her early 20s, eyes tired, posture unsure. Her name was Kendra Wallace. She was the daughter of the man Jamal had supposedly murdered. The guard closed the door behind her. She picked up the phone. I read the article, Kendra said, and I need to know the truth. Jamal picked up his side. I did not kill your father, he said, his voice steady but soft. I swear on my mother's life, I did not even know him. Kendra stared at him. Her fingers trembled as she pulled out a folded piece of paper and pressed it against the glass. It was an old police report. This part here, she said, pointing to the line, was never mentioned in court. Jamal leaned forward. It was a note logged by an officer the night of the murder. Victim received threats earlier in the week, said someone was after him over a business dispute. Your name was not in this report, Kendra whispered. So why were you the one arrested? Jamal blinked hard. That is what I have been asking for 8 years. Tears formed in her eyes. They used your face, your skin, to close a case fast. That visit changed everything. Kendra went public. In a heart-wrenching video shared online, she said, I want justice for my father, but that does not mean putting the wrong person behind bars. I believe Jamal is innocent. The media erupted again. National outlets picked it up. Civil rights attorneys started calling Claire. The case was reopened within a week, but the resistance was fierce. The prosecutor who originally handled the case went on television saying, it is easy to rewrite history, but the court made its decision based on the evidence at the time. Claire responded the next day with a press conference. There was no justice in that courtroom. Evidence was hidden, witnesses ignored, and a child was locked away because of bias, not facts. The public began demanding answers. A judge ordered an emergency evidentiary hearing. Inside that courtroom, now older and weathered, Jamal sat in a jumpsuit, but this time with a team. Claire, 2 civil rights lawyers, and dozens of supporters packing the benches behind him. Claire stood and delivered the final blow. "Your Honor, this is not just about new evidence. It is about evidence that was never allowed. A witness statement, a clerk's account, surveillance footage time-stamped minutes before the crime, and a report confirming the victim feared someone else." The judge listened quietly. Jamal could not read his face. Then came the final voice. "Kendra, I miss my father every day, but I will not let his name be used to destroy another innocent life. I stand with Jamal." The courtroom held its breath. Then the judge looked at Jamal and said 5 words. "You are free to go." Jamal broke down. His mother screamed from the gallery, rushing to the front, tears pouring down her face. She had waited over 8 years to hear those words, and now they were real. But the story was not over yet, because someone had kept this hidden, and Claire wanted answers. Outside the courthouse, the crowd exploded with cheers. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing, as Jamal stepped out into the sunlight for the first time in 8 years. The sky had never looked so wide. His mother wrapped her arms around him so tightly, as if trying to hold time itself. But even in that moment of freedom, Jamal's mind was not at peace. He needed to know who really killed Mr. Wallace and who buried the truth. Claire hadn't stopped working. With the case reopened and national pressure mounting, her legal team demanded full access to the original investigation files. What they found shook everyone. There had been another suspect, a man named Darrell Quinn, a former business partner of the victim. Quinn had gone bankrupt a year before the murder, and Mr. Wallace had testified against him in court. There was motive. But here was the real twist. Quinn had an alibi signed by the same lead detective who arrested Jamal. That detective had since resigned, quietly, just months after Jamal's conviction. No one questioned why. Until now. Claire pushed hard. The case was escalated to the state attorney general. Then one day, weeks after Jamal's release, Claire showed up at his mother's apartment, holding her phone out. She said, "Look," she said, her voice trembling. It was an arrest report. Darrell Quinn had been taken into custody. DNA from the original crime scene, long ignored, had finally been tested. It matched Quinn, not Jamal. Not only that, but the officer who had arrested Jamal had been paid to suppress the witness statement, paid by Quinn's legal team to protect his image during bankruptcy litigation. Corruption at every level. The press went wild. The officer was indicted. Quinn faced trial. But Jamal? He did not return to court as a defendant this time. He returned as a guest speaker. Months later, he stood before a graduation class at a community justice program, wearing a clean suit, holding no paper, just his truth. "I was 17 when they put me behind bars, but I never stopped drawing. I never stopped believing my voice mattered. If you are still breathing, you are not done. I am not done." Applause echoed through the auditorium. Jamal used the money from a civil settlement to open a nonprofit called Second Sketch, a place where wrongly accused youth could learn art, law, and storytelling. He hired former inmates as teachers. He invited people like Claire and even Kendra to speak about truth and accountability. And when a national network asked to do a documentary on his life, Jamal agreed, but only if the first 10 minutes focused on the others still inside, still waiting for their one call. One voice can change a verdict. One truth can undo a lie. But it takes courage to speak it and compassion to hear it. Jamal was silenced by the system, but lifted by those who chose to listen. Share this story, because someone out there is still waiting for their one call.